The mortgage sector isn't a sector that keeps them awake at night.
What's the sort of vision?
And yeah, it's a steep learning curve, but it has been, an absolute breath of fresh air actually. There's a lot on. AI, robo-advice, that's robo-advice on steroids. It's not what we've seen before. Either embrace change or you falter, you fail.
But what I'm very fortunate about is, we have a community of brokers within Primis.
So, I've touched into AI. Where does AI fit within Primis's sort of technology strategy? And like I was a bit of an imposter in the room to begin with. And I had lots of people looking at me go, oh yes, actually, you should be here.
Yeah. So what do you think some of the key things that our brokers need to be thinking about, be concerned about, coming out of either the regulatory agenda or anywhere else that you see? What are the key things you think they should be thinking about?
Where can I start?
Hi everyone, and welcome to a new series of videos called In Conversation With. And what we'll be doing in these videos is talking to people from our market, about our market, to give you important insights about where you'll be able to take your business in the future. I'm delighted to welcome on our first video a friend of mine, Steph Charman, who is the new Chief Executive of the Association of Mortgage Intermediaries. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you, Richard. It's an honour to be your first guest, and it's an absolute pleasure to be sat here with you as well.
Great. Well, I guess I should kick off really by saying congratulations on your role. I know you've been in there a few weeks now, but what are your initial observations of the role and the challenge you've got in front of you in your role at AMI?
So thank you, and yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a small team. So I'd worked closely with Amy in my previous roles, and obviously we have history. We go back from we're working together. So I'd worked closely with Amy on different things, and I knew the team was small, and I could see the output that they had. But it's not until you actually get in and you realise some of the work they do behind the scenes, some of the things that we just can't talk about.
Yeah.
But the work that we do, all for the greater good of the industry, and very much around championing the voice of the advisor. And you realise actually what an absolutely superb team they really are.
They are, yeah.
But it is a small team. So what I found myself being is 1 minute I'm IT, and then the next minute I'm finance, and then I'm marketing, and then I'm HR. So I'm definitely learning new skills, and yeah, it's a steep learning curve. But it has been, an absolute breath of fresh air, actually. There's a lot on.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure we'll touch into some of that as we go through. But yeah, there's a lot to get our teeth into. So 90-day plan went a little bit out the window.
So, I mean, you've stepped into the role at a very interesting time, a very challenging regulatory agenda. How on earth are you going to deal with all of that?
Yeah, so you're right. There is a lot going on, and more to come. I think, let's be honest, we're not even finished.
Yeah.
But I think it's good that the regulator is active in this market. It is active in this sector. They came out of the Dear CEO letter at the beginning of the year, and I think there was some pieces in there, and talking to them and saying, look, the mortgage sector isn't a sector that keeps them awake at night, that's good. That's a tick.
Yeah.
However, they are expecting us to raise the bar from, following the implementation of Consumer Duty, and then you step into, we're just working through the mortgage rule review in a minute, which I'm sure we can talk about. Protection market studies upcoming, and we've got a June discussion paper focused on innovation in the mortgage space. So, there is an element of prioritisation. As I said a minute ago, our 90-day plan, some of that has just been paused. It's not, it's just a pause of other things that we'd like to do while we make sure that we really, really focus and the team prioritise, what's important to make sure that the value of advice is heard.
Yeah, and with a small team, obviously, the value of the board that you have at AMI, really becomes very important. And we're delighted that our very own Helen Martin has joined the board there with her experience, and I think she's already had a couple of meetings as well.
She has, and she's been an excellent addition to the board. So, massive thank you for Helen just stepping forward and wanting to be involved. Without a doubt, that diversity of thought across the board is really, really important. And if you look at our board members, and I'm delighted that I had the opportunity to come into role and do board elections, a week in. Learning curve, not done that before, learning curve. Yeah. But we're delighted to have been able to do that. And I look at, the people that we've already got within the board, our existing board members, and then Helen and the two others that have joined, really does give you that, as I said, that diversity. And I think, it's not just all networks. We've got, DA representation, we've got smaller firms, bigger firms, estate agency firms, all coming at things with a slightly different angle, but all with one common goal to make sure that, we protect this marketplace and we make sure that the value of advice is key. Yeah,
sure. And stepping back from all the day-to-day, what's the sort of vision for Amy? Because obviously we're a big supporter. We're very much behind what Amy stands for. But what's your vision for where you want to take the business?
So I think, it's not broken. So I think I'll start with, I haven't come into a business I've come into a business with a really strong, solid foundation. My predecessor has done an amazing role for the 12, 15 years that he was there. But it is time for us to evolve. Yeah. The market's evolving. We've got topics and things coming into this space that we've never had to deal with before. We've never had to talk about AI before. Now AI is a topic of conversation I'm having on what feels like a daily basis. Yeah. So all of a sudden, there's pieces that we need to look at. We need to issue guidance. We need to look at how does that impact our sector as we move forward. For me, member feedback is incredibly important. But actually, do firms know do they know what's coming over the hill? And I think there's a massive role for Amy to. It's not about us directing the market, but it's about us helping guide the market and shape the future and look out for those unintended consequences. Yeah. So actually it is for us to sit there as a board and as a team and go, what could be the implication of X? And we've definitely done that with the mortgage rule review, is to look at those things and raise those on behalf of our members and be that voice.
So what do you think some of the key things that our brokers need to be thinking about, be concerned about, coming out of either the regulatory agenda or anywhere else that you see? What are the key things you think they should be thinking about?
Where can I start? So I think, look, I think our firms do an amazing job in this industry. They really do. They all put their customers right at the heart of everything that they do. And you see that, when we look at posts where brokers are saying, I'm up till X time at midnight, chasing rate withdrawals. They're not doing that for themselves. They're doing that because actually they really care about making sure their customers get a good outcome. So I think that's fantastic and that's not broken. I think what is coming over the hill with the mortgage rule review is a real challenge to advice in general. Yeah. And we're pushing back incredibly hard on that. What is seen as a consultation of fast, simpler, easier processes for customers, actually read underneath small changes, massive impact. Yeah. Yeah. And what I say by that is, and for anybody watching, I know we've had many conversations around this, the implication of withdrawing the advice trigger technically opens the door for significant execution-only transactions. And you might say, well, the market is, the consultation itself said the market is 97% advised. Anywhere between 87 and 92% of that is through intermediaries, which is, significant, and for all the right reasons. Advisors are doing an amazing job, and customers are choosing advisors to do that job for them. Yeah. However, you open the door to something. Who knows what the future may hold? And that's not me bashing lenders. That's not me saying the big six might do something different, but who's to say they won't? Mm-hmm. But who's to say new entrants won't come in? And I touched on AI. And you start to put these pieces together and you start to say, okay, so AI, robo-advice, that's robo-advice on steroids. It's not what we've seen before. Yeah. Execution only. Look what that future could be. And actually, where's customers lose their protection? They're not gaining advice. They're not making informed decisions. And and that cannot be a good customer outcome. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we're really pushing back on. And I think, advisors spend a lot of time in their business and not on their business. So it's the roles of the likes of Amy, it's the roles of you as a network to help guide them and support them. And I think that safety net that a network offers is really, really important and vital at times like now.
Yeah. We talked a lot about change, and there's been change in our own business over the last 12 to 18 months. But it feels like there's going to be more change in the market, and the broker, the network, the market itself is going to have to adapt to that or potentially go backwards. Would you agree with that? I think change is one of those, you either embrace change or you falter, you fail. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's okay to embrace change. It's okay for change to go slightly, I'm not saying this has happened from your perspective, it's okay for things to not quite work perfectly, as long as you fail fast, pivot
recognise what we've learned and move forward. Actually, that's better than just sitting back and doing nothing. I agree with you. We can't not accept the changes that are coming our way, whether that's technological advancements or change in legislation, regulatory legislation. But what we can do is look at what do we want for this market, what do we want this market to be, and adapt accordingly. And I think technology is a big part of that. And I think, again, as a network, you're there guiding and supporting firms on making the right decisions, because that is an absolute minefield at this moment in time. And I know you've gone through quite a big tech change yourselves, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously Amy has the advantage of being able to look into other markets, look into other countries and see what they're doing with their regulatory agendas, etc. Is anything that's happening in the UK being driven, do you think, by things that are happening in other countries, or can we learn anything from other markets, do you think?
I think we can definitely learn. So we spend some time talking to trade bodies across other countries, so New Zealand, Australia, Canada, South Africa, America, and it's very interesting to just listen to some of the dynamics that are working through those conversations. There's definitely some, you talk to our friends across the pond, they're definitely having a really difficult time at this moment, but Canada's really doing really, really well. The Australian market's really buoyant. So sometimes it's nice just to get that market sentiment. We are the highest intermediated across all of those countries. We've got the most amount of applicants going through advisors, and I think that's really important. There's some market dynamics driving that. Some of the markets operate just completely differently to how we do in the UK. I think there's some big learns, and we've got the protection market study working through at the moment. Australia went through something similar a few years ago, and they introduced caps on commission and things like that, and it decimated the protection market.
Right.
So actually, that's really that's obviously not good for Australia, and they'll be recovering from that. There's some real learns there that we can pull into our conversation with the regulator and say, look, we've actually got some examples of where things went wrong. Yeah. So let's learn from that, and let's learn from that, and not do the same things here. So Rich, I've been in role 15 weeks. You've been here 15 months. Is that? Have I got the sort of?
Yeah, that's about
so
right.
How's the first 15 months been for you?
It's been a whirlwind. There's been plenty to do. But what I'm very fortunate about is, we have a community of brokers within Primis that are so willing to help each other. I mean, it's a genuine community, and I've not seen that elsewhere, actually. I've seen pockets of it elsewhere, but right across the network, people are willing to share ideas, listen, talk, help. So that's a huge help. And I also think as well, the staff within the business, the board are all very supportive, and actually really directed at trying to make the broker's life easier. And look, a lot of what we do, sometimes it's we're giving difficult messages, particularly around compliance, and there's more that we can do. But the culture in the business is so customer focused. It's really impressive. So having those things are two massive advantages. But we've done some change on top of that. Things like a technology strategy coming in. We've signed our agreement with Mortgage Brains. We're keen now to roll that out. So there's been an awful lot going on. But as I say, I count myself as very lucky to have the support of the board. A really focused group of individuals internally in the business, and a group of brokers who are fantastic at helping customers, but are as fantastic at helping each other as well. So that's a real advantage for us.
And you talked about that technology strategy and the implementation of Mortgage Brain. So I've touched into AI. Where does AI fit within Primis's sort of technology strategy, and what do you see the future of that, and do you see a future of AI impacting advice?
Yeah, I don't see AI as a separate thing, because people talk about, well, there's technology and there's data and then there's AI. I don't see them as three things. I think they are all intertwined. So there is no way you will roll out a technology strategy over a 5-year period and it not have some element of AI in. But I think it's about choosing the AI that you want to use and what you want to use it for. I'm not yet convinced that AI can give advice. I believe that absolutely sits with professional advisors, but I do think that AI can streamline processes, can save time. So if what we can use AI for in the market is to allow brokers to see more customers, allow them to spend more time with customers, allow them to drive better outcomes for customers, then it's a brilliant use of that technology. I think just rolling AI out just for the sake of it, I don't get it. So for us, we've got a program of investment. We're investing more now in the big word technology than we've ever invested, and it was long overdue actually. But I think as our brokers start to see and feel and experience how the new technology will work for them, I think they'll get a real appetite for saying, okay, what's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
And I would agree with you around AI. What we've seen from an Amy perspective, and I've started to see, is there are some clever models out there, but it gives the customer what they said they wanted, not what the customer potentially needs.
Yeah.
So that if you put in that you want a 2-year fix, it will deliver you back a 2-year fixed.
Correct.
But I expect most of the, your brokers that are watching this will go, yeah, my customers go in and say, I think I need this.
Yeah.
And actually what they come out with might be a completely personalised recommendation. And I think that soft skills, that future goals, aspirations, those are things that AI can't touch into. So I agree, it's about augmenting process.
I went to a really interesting presentation, and the question that was asked of the AI is a question that I think is asked of brokers up and down the country all the time. And the question was, the customer says, what do you think I should offer? Right. Now the AI gave the average house prices in the area for the last 10 years. That's not the question that's being asked. What the customer wants is an opinion, a professional opinion. What do you think? What do you think I can get away with?
Yeah.
What can I get this house for?
Give me some guidelines. What other things should I be considering?
Yeah.
I mean, wider conversation.
Yeah. So that is still the preserve of the advisor. So it's about cleverly selecting what you want to use AI for. It's about cleverly integrating technology so that it all fits together and drives the advantages for the brokers. That's essentially what our technology strategy will be.
And I think, back to what I said earlier around that safety net of a network, being able to make those decisions for you, because we are, Amy, working on some guidance for firms, definitely around some of the considerations if they are looking to bring AI tools into their business. Yeah. But they're massive considerations.
They are, yeah. And I think it's hard. I think it's hard for small firms because, as you pointed out earlier on, when you're saying, well, I'm doing a bit of marketing, a bit of HR, and a bit of operations. When you run a small firm, you are all of those things. And so it's difficult to have time to think, well, what AI should I use? What technology should I use? So we see part of our role as to provide that guidance and to provide the opportunity for small firms to flourish because we're helping them make those decisions. We're bringing something to the table from that perspective. And do you see, we always think about the UK as a highly regulated market. And sometimes, I get into conversations with people that says, because we've got so much regulation, we can't do as much business as we would like. Do you see a correlation in other markets where lower amounts of regulation means higher amounts of business is done? Do you think that correlation exists?
No, I don't. I think now is the time if we've ever had a time to talk to the regulator around what does it need to look like, now is the time. As I said, they've got the June discussion paper is all around innovation, simplification. We've got a government who are supportive of growth and supportive of the mortgage sector and the housing sector, because we know the housing sector has a significant impact from a GDP perspective and into growth. So actually, how do we harness that and make sure the regulator doesn't need to be deemed as our enemy? They can be, that can be somebody that we can work with and talk to and have those open conversations. But we've got to have a collaborative partnership as opposed to it just being around, it can't all be one-sided. Yeah. So I think there are opportunities for us to shape what we would like things to be. I also think, some of these things are in place to protect advisors and they're in place to protect consumers. And it might seem like it's over the top sometimes, but actually it's to make sure that we're doing a really good job for customers, and that's really what we should be concentrating on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And turning the conversation to Primis,
Yes.
we were delighted to welcome you to Primis Live at Wembley Stadium earlier in the year. I'd be really interested to get your take on Primis Live. How did you feel it went? Any observations about the event? You chatted to a load of brokers, I know that as well. What was your take on the event?
So I'd only been in role a couple of weeks, so I have to say, having come from a competitor, sorry I shouldn't say it, but I had come from a competitor, I felt like I was a bit of an imposter in the room to begin with. And I had lots of people looking at me going, oh yes, actually you should be here. Yeah. So it was, but I was delighted to get your invite, and I was delighted to only be a couple of weeks into role and be able to come. The event itself, the minute you walk through the door, there was this energy in the room. There was this massive buzz, and I think that was fantastic. I loved the mix of being able to wander around and speak to all the exhibitors. You had a really fantastic range, real breadth of lenders and providers there, that's great to see that you've got that sponsorship and that support. Yeah. But you also had, really insightful panels and things going on at the same time. So that real mix of variety of content was great. And then walking into the afternoon, again, fantastic speakers, loved listening, just off the back of Crufts, and listening to Claire do her part was really insightful and really informative. And again, at a different agenda and a different pace and tone for the afternoon, which I think was great. And into what a wonderful celebration in the evening, a celebration of, the market's been tough. So not just a celebration of your advisors, but a celebration of, us getting through that resilience that we've all got in the marketplace, and a really nice balance, I think, across the day of, that insightful, informative, educational into, a really lovely celebratory evening.
Good. Well, you'll definitely get an invite next year as well.
Thank you very much.
As a result of that. Yeah, exactly. Just to round off then, I'm keen to get your thoughts on where you think the opportunities are. We can naturally get drawn in always to, well, what are the challenges, what are the downsides, but we always like to finish off with a positive. Where do you think the opportunities are for advisors?
So I am as you know, I am a glass half full person, and I think we can always go to what could be, and I've probably talked about what could be the worst case scenarios. But actually, I think there's a lot for us to look at. I think we are in a highly intermediated sector, but we could do more from a product transfer perspective. Yeah. So I said anywhere between 87 and 92, but that's purchase and remortgages. Product transfers sit about 50%. So actually, there's a massive opportunity for us to talk to customers, and that product maturity is a massive piece of growth over the next 2 to 3 years. So I also think, out of the discussion paper, they're looking at areas like later life lending. Nothing's off the table for June. So actually, you could say, oh, that's scary, because what could that mean? But you could also go, do you know what, actually, that's exciting, because actually what could we do as pure, proper, true innovation to change how people get onto the housing market? And I would finish with, there's some fantastic work being done from a home buyer selling group perspective, looking at how do we change the conveyancing process in this market, and pilots going on at the moment which are reducing exchange to completion down into offer to completion down into weeks, days and weeks, not weeks and months. So how exciting is that we could see a completely different journey for customers coming over the hill? So I think there is more to be excited about than not, but always with that back of your mind of we need to and Amy will continue to champion the value of advice.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you for sitting and having a conversation with us. Thank you for being our first guest. And we look forward to chatting to you on further videos of this nature in the coming months.